So the Celtic New Year, known in the Gaelic tradition as Samhain and in the Brythonic tradition as Nos Galan-Gaeth, which translates to the night before the first day of winter. And Nos Galan-Gaeth and Samhain are commonly known as Halloween. It's the 31st of October. Now the 31st of October, that's just in the middle of autumn. It's a very strange time for a new year, isn't it? Well, as I've just said, the 1st of November to the Celts was the first day of winter. But still, why would you have a new year on the first day of winter? Well, Julius Caesar, in his commentaries on the Gallic Wars, tells us that the Celts believed themselves to be descendant from the god Despater. Now Despater was a Roman god, and he was the god of darkness, death, and the underworld. And what Caesar was really saying was that the Celts believed themselves to be descendant from a god that was equivalent to Despater. So a Celtic god that was the god of death, darkness, and the underworld. Now the question has arisen many times just who Caesar was talking about. What Celtic god was Caesar talking about when he was talking about the Celtic Despater? The short answer is we don't really know. In fact, it's more than likely that Caesar wasn't talking about any particular god. It's more likely that what he was saying is that the Celts, who had different gods in different regions and different tribes, but they all believed that they descended from a god that was a god of the underworld and a god of darkness and a god of death. But that doesn't mean that the god should remain nameless. There were many gods that we know of that would have fulfilled that role for the people who followed their cults. And so there would have been many gods that could and would have fulfilled that role within the different tribes. And Beli, for instance, was one god who was the oldest god within the Pantheon, said to be the father of all the gods. Now, although we kind of know Beli as being a sun god, the truth is that is because how the Romans saw Beli, and they associated Beli with Apollo. But if we look at the evidence, we see that Beli was really a sky god, and he was a god of life, death, and rebirth. And that makes him a god of the underworld. And then there was Lugus, one of the most widely venerated gods throughout the Celtic world, all the way from Spain and Gaul and into Britain. And then there's Tyrannus, the Thunderer, and another candidate is Cernunnos, who certainly seems like he would fulfill that role as god of the underworld. But in fact, the role of Disparta was probably held by all of these gods. And they were known as the gods of the underworld and the gods of darkness by different tribes. And so it would all depend on which tribe or which group of people from which region you would ask as to who they believed was the god of the underworld. The fact is that really all Caesar was trying to do was to tell us that the Celts believed themselves to be descendant from a god of darkness and a god that ruled the underworld and a god that was the god of life, death and rebirth. And so from this he tells us that the Celtic tradition saw the day followed night and light followed dark. But really it goes much deeper than that. The Celts held dearly that life was a constant cycle, and so an end was just the start of a new beginning. And so for the Celts, the day always started at sundown, which saw the death of the previous day, and hence the night was the gestation period, if you like, for the birth of a new day to follow. And so it was for the new year. The start of winter saw the death of the old year and the beginnings of life leading to the rebirth of the sun at the winter solstice. And so there we have it. Every new year was started with the winter, and the winter was received with the spirit of optimism and revitalization. And so the hard part of the year was done and completed right at the very beginning, and then they had the rest of the year to look forward to. And if the gods be willing, they would end the year with a celebration and a bountiful harvest. So if you have any questions about this subject, then please, I'm more than happy to answer your questions. This is a subject, Celtic belief systems is a subject that absolutely fascinates me. So I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. And if you're not already subscribed, the button's down below. And please, if you've enjoyed it, then give us a thumbs up. And with that, I'll see you on the next one.